Cobra Kai fans, the time has finally come. Marketing has officially kickstarted for part 2 of Cobra Kai Season 6. And in this video, we got so many things to talk about because so many things were revealed and dropped today, with 8 brand new images from part 2, an exclusive interview with the big 3 where they talk about part 2 with Netflix's To Doom, where they drop a bunch of teases, and last but not least, we get the reveal of 3 brand new cast members making their debut in the Miyagi-verse in part 2 of Season 6. So without wasting any more time, that's the order that we're going to dive into each of these details and new bits of content. So let's get started and see what we can decipher. So the first image that actually pops up on Netflix's To Doom site, and it was actually the first image that I saw, was a face-to-face shot of Johnny Lawrence and John Kreese. You can see that they're right in front of some type of martial arts booth. I don't really know what's exactly going on in the background, but because it's a martial arts booth of sorts, it's definitely going to be at the Sekai Taikai somewhere. They're not obviously currently competing at this point because they're both in their street clothes, but the important piece of information to take away from this image is that Sensei Kreese actually has Master Kim's Unjang-Do that he went hunting for in part 1, which honestly kind of shocked me a little bit because that wouldn't necessarily be something that I would expect Master Kim to just give Kreese or let him use, especially going to a tournament. My good friend Darius from the Kings of Pop Culture actually brought up a very good point in regards to this image and Kreese's Unjang-Do that he's got in his hands, and he thinks that it's a perfect representation of the film narrative principle called Chekhov's gun. I think I'm saying that right, I'm not completely sure, but those of you who are not familiar with that, Chekhov's gun is a narrative principle where an element introduced in the story seems a little bit unimportant at the beginning, but will later take on greater significance in the story. To put it in more basic terms, Darius thinks that they introduced the idea of the Unjang-Do and had Kreese bring it to the Sekai Taikai for it to ultimately be used. We obviously know that Kreese is going to have the intention to potentially use it, but Darius seems to think that it's definitely going to be used and come full circle in part 2 at some point. Moving along to the second picture is a very intense Daniel LaRusso, looking very intense and in his fighting stance, and it's important to note that this isn't Daniel LaRusso's typical fighting stance. He usually stands with at least one of his hands open, looking ready to defend. But judging from just this photo, this does not look like a Daniel LaRusso who's on the defense. He's looking like he's on the attack. You can tell by the intensity on his face that this is going to be a brutal fight. I've seen a lot of people thinking that it could be Terry Silver that he's fighting, and that very well could be the case. It's just a rather odd location to see Daniel LaRusso in, knowing that they're going to be at the Sekai Taikai for a majority of this batch of episodes. Moving along to the third photo, we see Team Cobra Kai with the big 3 of Yoon, Quan, and Tori. This looks like it's taking place on a different day from the cliffhanger from part 1, as Tori's hair is in a completely different hairstyle. So this definitely isn't the first day of the Sekai Taikai, but judging by seeing the 3 of them together, this very well could be a 3v3 type of match. There isn't really much else we can decipher from just this image alone. We just see Kreese and Sensei Kim looking like they're coaching. Kreese has got his hand on his chin like he's a little bit concerned. Maybe they're all looking at something that's kind of shocked them, I think. I don't think it's Terry Silver that they're looking at because I feel like Kreese, Sensei Kim, and especially Tori would be in a lot more of shock, but they're definitely looking at something that's caught their attention. Moving on to image 4 that was released today, we are now halfway through with the batch of images that we got. We got an image of Louis Tan, who is going to be playing Sensei Wolf, a new character in Cobra Kai Season 6. I'll talk about Louis Tan and Sensei Wolf's character a little bit later on in the video when we're covering the article that was released also today from Deadline, but boy, does this look awesome. I'm not sure. I don't really think this is the Sekai Taikai because it's not the same venue, and plus they're in a cage. It's also unknown to all of us if there's going to be a sensei bracket in the Sekai Taikai. We still don't know that yet. However, we do know that Louis Tan, who's going to be playing Sensei Wolf, is going to be the head sensei of the Iron Dragons dojo. I'm wondering if he's going to be some sort of antagonist for our hero senseis of Daniel, Johnny, and Chozen. It only kind of makes sense. Rival senseis usually are going to have some run-ins with other senseis. Photo number 5 is definitely one worthy of bringing a smile to your face. There's really not much going on except it just makes you happy as a Cobra Kai and a Karate Kid fan to see the trio of Daniel, Johnny, and Chozen fist bumping each other. I'm not sure, maybe they just got a win in the tournament, but it definitely looks like things are going semi-well for them. just judging by this photo alone. The next photo is definitely a funny one. We see Daniel, Anthony, Bert, Nate, and the rest of the background extras from the Miyagi-Do dojo at the LaRusso mansion, and they're looking at something. I can most definitely bet that they're looking at the TV screen, as the Sekai Taikai is indeed going to be televised on a global stage. And this actually leads us to know that Miyagi-Do will most definitely be making it to the final rounds, because Daniel did mention in part 1 that only the final stages will be televised, so it's important to know that Miyagi-Do will be making it to that final stage if they're all watching it, and it makes perfect sense. Come on, Miyagi-Do is definitely going to be winning this tournament, let's be real. This next one is really going to have you at like a loss for words. It's Sensei Kim and Chozen face to face at some sort of bar in Barcelona, and I really do not know what's happening here, because these two have only had one scene barely together from season 5 episode 6, when Johnny and Chozen confront the Topanga dojo that's later turned into a Cobra Kai dojo. They have a brief little back and forth, and that's pretty much the end of it. So it's going to be interesting to see these characters exploring each other and just kind of talking, getting more scenes with characters that we aren't used to seeing together. So I'm really anxious to see how this dynamic is going to shape up and what exactly the context that's going on here, because I can't really tell you much else that's really going on here that I can think of. And the last image on this list is of probably my favorite. It's got our main 6 fighters fighting for Miyagi-Do. We got Sam, Robby, Hawk, Dimitri, Miguel, and Devin. This is another shot that isn't from the episode 5 cliffhanger, because Sam's hair is different than what it was back then. This is, I would say, maybe day 2 or 3, or however many days like they're going to take place in part 2. But as you can see in the background, they got all the dojos gathered around. Maybe Gunther's giving a statement or providing context with some of the rules for the next batch of fights that are about to take place. But either way, it's gonna be an awesome one. But now that's it for the batch of new images that we got. Now we're gonna move on to the exclusive interview with Tudum that the big 3 of creators, John Hurwitz, Hayden Schlossberg, and Josh Heel did. I'm not gonna cover the entire article, I'm just gonna cover the things that I think are the most noteworthy that we can take away and look to expect for part 2. I'll leave a link in the description for those of you who wanna take a look at the new images that we got in closer detail and take a closer look at this interview. But now the first thing that really caught my eye was from the man himself, Hayden Schlossberg. He told Tudum that the Sekai Taikai is a totally different environment. The competitive space is different from previous All Valley tournaments. There's no crowd watching. This is a karate temple that they're going to, where the only people in attendance are black belts or karate masters. This is absolutely something I love, because I love that it's not pretty much a carbon copy of the All Valley. They kind of can't do that, because we were talking about a regional karate tournament with the All Valleys. This is stepping it up big time with a global level, not just a national level we've leveled up to now. Global. Regional to global is one heck of a jump. And I'm glad to see it's so different, and I'm continuing to look forward to what else is to come that's going to really differentiate the two. John Hurwitz is actually next to throw his hat in the ring and give some context to part 2, and he pretty much says that part 2 is going to be getting right into the action. It's good to hear that there's really not going to be a time jump. We're getting off right from the get-go. Josh Heel then touches upon new character Sensei Wolf, who's going to be played by Louis Tan, who's most notably seen in Mortal Kombat and actually appeared in Deadpool and Wolverine. And Josh iterates that Sensei Wolf will be tremendously important to the story. He also describes that casting and designing the character of Sensei Wolf, it definitely needed to be a martial artist. He also explains that they've been watching him and following his career for some time, and that when he finally got to set and put on that gi, he embodied Sensei Wolf from the get-go. And most importantly, he was ready for action. So are we gonna see Sensei Wolf throw down in part 2? I guess only time will tell. The last thing that Josh touches upon when it comes to Sensei Wolf is that he said that new students Patrick Lewis, who's going to be playing Axel Kovacevic, and newcomer Reina Valingdaham, sorry for butchering that, she's going to be playing Zara Malik. So these all 3 new characters are definitely going to be getting a lot of scenes together, and I think the Iron Dragons are definitely going to be a notable dojo. Josh then also touched upon something very important, and that was kind of how they wanted to capture the scale of the Sekai Taikai. Josh said that we wanted to make sure we deliver on the promise of an international martial arts competition. When you look at movies like Bloodsport, you're seeing fighters coming from all parts of the globe, and they're all gathering in one place to decide who will be the best. There's some thematic inspiration from that, and making sure we're seeing a slice of karate at the various points of our world. And wrapping up this entire interview, Hayden Schlossberg says that the city of Barcelona itself will be a major character in part 2. He says that you're going to be seeing our characters in hotels, restaurants, and even on the street in Barcelona. He shares that it's fun seeing these characters we've grown to love encountering each other in a totally different environment. It's totally different energy, and you'll get a little taste of that from the photos released. See, this is exactly what we've been waiting so long for, and I'm certainly glad that it wasn't just photos with not much context. I'm really glad that the big three actually had this little interview to provide us with further context that we can drive from these photos. And I just love hearing the creator's point of view from what went into making this global tournament so great and so grand, and how it's going to actually play into furthering this conclusion of this martial arts saga that's been going on for 30 plus, almost 40 years. But now moving on to the last part of the big batch of news that came today. We kind of already touched on all of this new info, but I'll just touch on it briefly again. Just judging from this article and what was revealed in the set photos and the interview with John, Josh, and Hayden, these are 3 all new characters that are going to be a part of the same dojo of Iron Dragons, with Louis Tan playing their Sensei Wolf, who's going to be a big part of the story. And they're also introducing 2 of his students of Axel Kovacevic, played by Patrick Lewis, and Reina Vallandigham, playing Zara Malik. We thought the only antagonist for our Miyagi-Do students and senseis was going to be Cobra Kai. Well, think again, because the Iron Dragons are here, and they're coming to win this thing as well. But guys, that's going to do it for my full breakdown of all the news, photos, and exclusive reveals that we got today. It was definitely an action-packed, news-filled day. We were definitely due for one as Cobra Kai fans, as we're now less than a month away from Part 2's premiere. And this is just the beginning. These next 3 weeks that are going to be coming up, leading up to the premiere, are definitely going to be action-packed and news-filled, and I cannot wait to discuss more of it with you guys. And you best believe I'm gonna cover it all here right on Strike First Media. Y'all know the drill by now. Leave a like on the video if you got something out of today, and if you didn't, change it to a dislike. Any feedback greatly helps out my channel with the YouTube algorithm. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you love everything when it comes to Cobra Kai and the Miyagi-verse. Follow me on all socials at Strike First Media. I post tons of other content like edits, updates on my Instagram and Twitter profiles as well. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. No mercy.